the Avengers. They love water, but which one loves it the most? Hey everybody, doing something a little different here. This is part of something called Team Water. It is a fundraising event to get more water to people who need water, and it is all the coolest YouTubers like Mr. Beast, everybody loves Mr. Beast, Mark Rober, me, others. So watch all the Team Water videos today. I don't know what any of them are going to be about, but I know what mine's going to be about because I know about Avengers and I know about water. And also, it is like 100 degrees in New Jersey, so I'm going to take this hoodie off. This very cool Team Water hoodie, hashtag Team Water, and there'll be information in the description, and you follow links in the description. Links will be on screen at all times, not at all times, at different times, and you will follow those. You can donate to Team Water. It'll be great. Watch the other videos, all that stuff. All right, I'm taking this hoodie off. Okay, that feels better. Now, when I got the call from Mr. Beast, when Mr. Beast and Mark Rober called me on my cell phone and said, hey, Nando, we need you to make a video for Team Water, I said, what's a video I can make about water? What can I bring to the table? And I thought, I've got it. A question everybody's always had that's watched these Avengers movies and stuff. Which Avenger is the wettest? Listen, I heard it. I heard what it is, but I've tried different words, and that's the best words for what it is. Wettest Avenger. Soggiest Avenger, maybe? I don't know. Moistest Avenger? That's a really awkward. We don't like that at all. But I know the phrasing of Wettest Avenger, but we're all going to be mature because this is a charity thing. And also, maybe I'll change the title of the video if we can't be mature, but you know, maybe be mature. This is important work. This is scientific. We're going to talk about which Avenger is the wettest. Who gets the wettest in these movies? I even saying it, I'm like, I can't. But this is important. This is scientific. Much like Mark Rober, who I think does science videos. I saw his hot ones. So you watch these Avengers movies, you've asked yourself, which Avenger is the wettest? Well, I'm going to tell you because I did the work. I watched all the movies over the course of my life. I didn't rewatch them all for this. I've just seen them a billion times. However, I did strategically forget some things that I decided to leave out, like James Gunn with that Easter egg that definitely doesn't exist for Guardians of the Galaxy 1, but this I did do on purpose. So go into the comments and comment the specific things that I deliberately missed in this video. Okay, so what we're going to do, it's incredibly simple. I have a list of all of the Avengers. Now, making this list could be its own video just because, like, who is an Avenger? Does, let's say, Shang-Chi count as an Avenger? Maybe not yet, but also we got the call from Wong, and he's probably going to be an Avenger in the next movie. Does M'Baku count as an Avenger? We'll get to it, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to say yes. But I made a list of all the Avengers. I only forgot one. You tell me which one I forgot in the comments. Now we're going to go through all the Avengers chronologically when they were introduced, like not in the movies, but like when their movies were released and stuff. And also we'll probably jump around a little bit. We're going to talk about the Avenger, their stance on water, what water they get into, and what water they don't get into, and which one is the wettest. I do think there are two Avengers that I think are tied for the most wet. And there's some people that maybe they're new and they're, you know, climbing up the charts. We'll see over more time. But let's start at the beginning. Iron Man 1, 2008, Iron Man. He's an Avenger. How wet does Iron Man get? Well, this one's an interesting one, actually, because he has the Iron Man suit. So technically, does he even, you know, get wet? Like in the beginning of Avengers, when he's like making that pipe that's supplying Avengers Tower with like free energy or something, which I don't think the energy grid in New York has changed, so I'm assuming that never went anywhere. And it's not like the Tesseract was like bad and that was what was doing it. It seemed like it was just something he had invented, but he just went, nobody gets it for me. Anyway, but he doesn't get wet because he's got the suit on. I'm gonna count that for him as one of the wet moments for Iron Man, but I'm gonna say Iron Man's wettest moment for sure is Iron Man 3, when the mansion collapses and he has to get out and his suit takes his hand and pulls him up. Hand gets very wet, and also he's covered in water even inside of the suit. I feel like this suit, because it's the modular one, there's probably some gaps. I feel like, well, I guess we see him get out of the suit and he's not super wet, but still, I think that's as good as we're gonna get for Iron Man. We're off to a rocky start, unless I forgot about something. I don't know. So Iron Man, not that wet of an Avenger. Next, War Machine, also introduced in this movie. I can't think of a single time he gets wet, does anything wet related. I guess him and Iron Man both land in a small puddle in that pavilion in Iron Man 2, where I think it's the Oracle Pavilion where they fight all the robots, but like they barely get, that's barely any wetness. Now I bet you're wondering, what about Secret Invasion? Well, that's not War Machine, that's a different guy, Rava, and I don't care. Also, I didn't rewatch What If, so if anybody gets wet in the What Ifs, that should be on this list, so put it in the comments. Next, let's talk about Thor. Ooh, now Thor's an Avenger. Thor goes into the pool in Avengers Age of Ultron, where he does nothing but see a little flash forward that there's going to be Infinity Stones or something. Here's the thing with Thor. In a lot of the Thor movies, I don't know if this is true of all of them, but definitely the first one, I think the second one too, there's shots of him like just freshly, you know, washing himself up with a little rag or something, showing his abs. In those shots, I assume he's supposed to have showered, but he's not like very wet in them, so I don't think those really count. Now, I will say for Thor, in the intro in Thor 4, we see the Guardians of the Galaxy fighting in the water, so this is going to be good for all of them. But very interestingly, Thor, absent from that fighting, not in the water. That will say in the end of the movie when they go to visit Eternity and get a wish, because Eternity is the cosmic cube in these or whatever, there is water, so Thor is in water there. So, okay, this is a wetter Avenger than Iron Man, but definitely not the wettest. Oh, I guess if we're doing this by introduction, Black Widow shows up at Iron Man 2, so listen, remember, we're gonna be respectful, but let's figure out, is she the wettest Avenger? Not really. Not a whole lot of moments like that, moments in the water. I will give her the one big one is in Black Widow. She fights Taskmaster on a bridge and then jumps off of the bridge to protect herself. That's the one time I can think of for her, and she's in a lot of these movies, but like not near too much water. Also, I don't really care if a character gets rained on. A lot of characters get rained on. Thor is the god of thunder and kind of the storm. Gets rained on a lot, but like everybody gets rained on. So I'm counting the rain as like it's a wash. I mean, it's a wash, but it's a wash for your car, and it's a wash for not counting for this. I'm talking about are these Avengers seeking out water? God, there's so many more in this list. Oh, the Hulk. The Hulk. Does the Hulk get involved in water? Well, he gets rained on because he's very sad in the Incredible Hulk movie, but I think his best water moments, he has some fights in water. He fights Cull Obsidian. Now, this is when he's Bruce Banner, but in the machine, you know, the Hulkbuster armor in a big thing of water. Also fights the Fenris Wolf in the water in Asgard. So the Hulk is pretty at home in the water. Moving right along. Captain America. Okay. Does it count as wetness if you freeze? He freezes in the ocean, so at least for some point, he doesn't go straight into like a big block of ice. He is wet. And even you see when they defrost him in whichever movie that is, one of the movies, you see him be defrosted and he's wet then. But also a lot of swimming in that movie. There's that kid who's like, Captain America, I can swim. And also Captain America needs to jump into the water to beat up that submarine. And that's just one Captain America movie, one that ends with him in water. Then you look at Captain America the Winter Soldier. That is a waterful movie if I've ever seen one. He's jumping from the helicopter into the water by the Lemurian star. He's being thrown into the river when he fights Bucky and getting rescued from the river. Like, so much water. He's soaked. He's sloshing around that whole movie. They don't show it, but they did a good job to edit around it. But like in those fights, everything should sound like squish, squish, squish whenever he's walking around. I will say not a lot of water in Civil War that I can remember, and not much comes to mind in those Avengers movies. I will say Black Panther and Captain America both are fighting in the like front of the fight in Wakanda in Infinity War. There is some water there. They're like jumping around and stuff. I would say Black Panther, if I remember correctly, gets a little bit more of it, but I wouldn't say that's like a very pivotal water moment. And boy, already you know what I need is some water. So yeah, I think there's a case to be made. Captain America is the wettest Avenger. Based on all of those moments I just said. He is around the water very frequently. He spent, what do we think, like 70 years in water? But I think there's a couple other Avengers that may be in the running. Hawkeye, not incredibly wet as far as I can remember. The wettest moment for Hawkeye is, I think, when he's sitting in the pool after receiving the Soul Stone. It is a pool of water. Besides that, I can't think of a moment where Hawkeye is in water, so it probably doesn't exist. Next, we're just gonna name a bunch that I don't think ever get in water. Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Vision, Falcon. You figure maybe Falcon, but I don't think he does. When would he? You know, not in Civil War. He fights over the water in Brave New World, but he doesn't go in. He probably gets a little bit of water on him when he's surfing on that missile. I'll give him that. He's one of the drier Marvel characters, not very much water that I can tell. And then Vision and Scarlet Witch, I'm really having trouble thinking of a single time. And he'd love water because he loves whimsy and human experiences and stuff. So you figure he'd love to go swimming. Maybe there's a bit in like the WandaVision credits at some point when he like is in a swimming pool, but I don't think so. There's no public pool in Westview, and like he's dead, so I mean he's getting another show. They're doing the Vision Quest show, so we'll see. All right, next let's talk about Winter Soldier because I kind of skipped him. He falls off a train, also falls into some water. He doesn't freeze, but he does get captured, and like I would say he's about as wet in those moments as Steve Rogers is, because I think if you freeze like Steve Rogers does, you're wet for a little bit, but then wet, I feel like there's to be liquid involved. And once the ice becomes a solid, not wet anymore. For that reason, I believe him and Bucky probably spent about the same amount of time being wet from falling off a thing into some more stuff. He also pulled Steve out of the river, so I think that's another tick for him for being one of the wetter Avengers. Besides that, I can't think of anything from his show. Now, let's talk about Ant-Man. Now, Ant-Man, this guy loves water. So he falls in a tub when he first gets his Ant-Man powers. It's not that much water, but for him it is, because it's big and he's small. Then he uses a raft made of ants to navigate the water later in that movie. And then in Ant-Man and the Wasp, he has to go into what I think is the San Francisco Bay and becomes giant in that. Just a ton of water for him. Then in Avengers Endgame, he rescues everybody as they're getting the water. There's like water running. Okay, so there's some water on Hulk and War Machine, his first water. But then Ant-Man is like kind of navigating that in his Ant-Man size. But again, more water for him. Also, he drinks the goo. I don't know if the goo counts as wetness in Quantumania, but that's kind of wetness. Either way, I think Ant-Man makes great use of water. And part of what's so fun about him is because he's so small, there's water in our everyday life. There's water here, in this cup. For me and you, it's just drink, but for Ant-Man, big problem. Oh yeah, and obviously he lands in a pool during that big fight. That's something I remembered and didn't have to check, but that's him and the one that eventually becomes MODOK fall into a pool in Ant-Man 1. So yeah, I think there's a pretty good case to be made for Ant-Man being one of the wetter Avengers. Wasp, not as much, even though she's in most of these movies and in some of these situations. I think part of it just because she can fly, doesn't really need to get in as much wet situations. Doctor Strange. Ooh, okay, here we go. Not only is he one of the drier Avengers, maybe one of the enemies of water. Because, first of all, water is his origin story. He crashes his car into some water, and that's what gives him his superpower, so that's bad. And then, in Avengers Endgame, when everybody's fighting all the monsters, and he's clearly really sick at it and should be helping more, he has to hold back some water because it's gonna crush everyone. So that's why he doesn't do anything cool in the end of the movie. But like, he's against the water in that situation. Now, the only other thing I can think of for him for wetness is when they're in the paint dimension, him and America Chavez, does that count as wet? Because the dimension is that, and then they go to a new dimension and they're not wet in the future, right? Like they're not like soaked in paint. So I'm gonna say no. Maybe he's like for a second. But I would say Doctor Strange, not only is he one of the drier Avengers, he is an Avenger who does not like water. Don't get him wet. He's like a cat or a cotton candy, like a raccoon eating cotton candy and then it goes disappears in the water. Videos of those are fun. I mean, it's sad because he doesn't know what's going on. Wong, I don't know. Oh, Black Panther. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Where's Spider-Man? Did I skip him? Did I not put Spider-Man on this list? Jesus. Oh no, there he is. Okay, he's just lower on the list for no good reason. Black Panther. Now these guys. Okay, so we're gonna talk about all the Black Panther characters. We'll start with T'Challa. Has a fight on the precipice of the cliff in the waterfall. So lots of water in that fight. And then he gets tossed into the river, I guess, below and almost dies. Doesn't, but is saved, rescued by M'Baku. I guess he's not rescued by M'Baku. He's rescued by members of the Jabari tribe, I think is what M'Baku says. But then in Avengers Infinity War, he fights near some water, I believe. Besides that, not a lot of water from him. And then, tragically, Chadwick Boseman passed away. So he was not alive for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, one of the wettest movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, perhaps the wettest. And this is really where a lot of characters get some wetness points. Here's the thing with Shuri, though. Shuri, during the flooding of Wakanda, is in a plane, so not very wet. And then she goes into Namor's kingdom, into Talokan, in like a scuba suit. So again, not getting very wet. And then the big fight on the stupid boat, she's not on the boat, but also not in the water, because the goal of that fight is to keep Namor out of the water. So Shuri, even though she becomes a new Black Panther, not very wet. Also, doesn't do a challenge for leadership of Black Panther. She skips it in a move that apparently, according to everybody who commented on my one video, means that she abdicates the role of leader of Wakanda and is just the Black Panther, which means M'Baku is the new leader of Wakanda, which makes sense based on what happens in Wakanda Forever. But hey, let's talk about M'Baku. That guy gets wet. Woof. But hey, let's talk about M'Baku. Now, he is one of the wetter characters in these movies because not only does he challenge T'Challa on the cliff in the first movie, but in Wakanda Forever, this man is in the water. He is jumping in to save people in a boat. Like, this is very good water time for this character. Now, is M'Baku an Avenger? I don't know. I guess with characters that are pre-Infinity War and Endgame, my way I think about it is if you were there for the big Avengers Assemble moment, you're an Avenger. Even if you were never, like, inducted into the group as if there's some sort of, like, swearing-in ceremony or something, which there is not. So I think M'Baku counts as an Avenger. Nakia also saves people during Wakanda Forever and has to do the scuba thing to rescue Shuri. So there's some water time for her. And then I would say Okoye is about the same as everybody else here. She has her Midnight Angel mech suit thing for the end of Wakanda Forever, but really nobody gets wet at the end of Wakanda Forever besides, like, the Talo Kanil, but everybody else stays on the boat. But I guess it's interesting that Shuri is one of the drier characters in the Black Panther series. I would say M'Baku is perhaps one of the wettest. Besides, and I guess we'll talk about him now, Namor. So my thing with Namor is, does he count as an Avenger? Is Namor an Avenger? Because he's a character who, yes, has briefly been an Avenger in the comics and has been an X-Man and has been on many teams, but doesn't like to do that. And I think in the next movie, even though there's characters like Shang-Chi who are not technically in the Avengers yet, I don't see why they wouldn't be. With Namor, I'm like, I think he might be too prideful to actually join the Avengers. He might just do his own thing. And for that reason, and for also, if he was part of this, then he would make it unfair he'd win. I'm going to say Namor does not count as an Avenger. He has not been Avenger yet. He may become an Avenger eventually, but I don't think he's an Avenger. Put in the comments if you do. Besides that, if he did count, then obviously he would be the wettest because he's always underwater and he's never wearing clothes. Like, he has his little shorts, but like he doesn't, so he's getting wet. He's even throwing water at people because he has his little water bombs. I don't think any main characters get hit with the water bombs besides Ironheart, who I guess we could talk about Ironheart. That pretty wet. Ironheart also gets kidnapped into Talo Kanil by Achuma and them. I don't know what happens there though. I would imagine they just go down into the water, so that's some wetness. And I don't think there's any wetness in her show. Okay, so we got the Black Panther characters. Let's talk about a couple of others who will just fly through. Captain Marvel. I don't think there's any wetness for Captain Marvel. I will say Captain Marvel, she's the one character in one of these movies that is dealing with conservation, kind of. Because in the Marvels, Dar-Ben is trying to restore the water in her planet, Hala. So they steal the water from the musical planet, but I don't think Carol gets that involved in that. And if she does, she probably just go underwater. So I'm going to say Carol is one of the, and remember, fundraiser, so we're going to be mature, one of the drier Avengers. Right up there with new Avengers, Red Guardian, John Walker, Ghost, and Sentry. I don't think any of them have any moments where they're like in water. I would say Yelena has her Void moment where she's near a bathtub. While that's not currently full of water, but like that's water adjacent, so that's something. So yeah, not a lot of water for the new Avengers, besides Bucky, of course. Oh, let's talk about Joaquin Torres. Falls in water. So that's a great start for this new, he's not one of the new Avengers, he's a new Avenger. And then let's do Shang-Chi. Has to go through a water portal to get to Talo, and then he has to go underwater to like commune with the Great Protector, the dragon. So he's also doing a lot of good work on the water side of things. The Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, so this one's tricky because I'm just going to count them all as water characters. They're all in the Thor 4 intro in the water. Drax has some moments where he gets wet when he jumps into the Rathgar or whatever they're called, the mouth of that big thing, because he's covered in goo afterwards. And goo has got some wetness to it. Star-Lord, in the beginning of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, like his introduction, he's all wet. It's unclear why. I guess because that planet's just very humid and like there's water spurting out. So it doesn't seem like he went into water, but he got a lot of water on him. And didn't I say I wasn't going to count rain? I did. But that was because I didn't think I'd be able to remember all the times the character's in the rain but now I can remember a specific one, so I'm gonna count this one. Besides that, and Rocket being under the building as it collapses, and also being in some water, from what I can remember from the first 3 Guardians movies, the Avengers movies they're in, the Thor movie they're in, and the holiday special, not a lot of water in the Guardians, which makes sense because they're in space. And they spend a lot of time in spaceships or in you know, the planet that is Ego's planet, but not doing a lot of water stuff there. I wish I had more for Nebula, because I think there's a stronger case for Nebula and Rocket being Avengers, because they spend time on the Avengers during the blip, but man, I don't think there's anything there, unless there is comments. So right now, we're getting to the end of this video. I think we got a couple of candidates for Wettest Avenger. Captain America, one of the wetter Avengers. Ant-Man, one of the wetter Avengers. And then this other one that I kind of forgot for a second, Spider-Man. And for a while I did forget him, and then I realized, and then I'm like, I'll save him for the end. He's got a lot of problems with water. As someone who played those early video games where Spider-Man dies if he falls in the water, Spider-Man has a lot of water hazard moments in these movies, especially in the first movie, in Spider-Man Homecoming. He nearly drowns in the parachute until Iron Man rescues him. He also has his moment on the ferry, although he's able to stay dry through that. He also skips going to the pool with all the kids in DC, so not getting wet there. But then in Spider-Man Far From Home, he has what might be, besides the Talokanil flooding, the wettest scene in the MCU, because this is when he fights Hydro Man, or whatever, Mysterio's illusion, but the illusion of Hydro Man in Venice, and is getting soaked, and like every punch is a bunch of water. And that's a really good example of like, when Spider-Man gets wet, it's almost always bad for him. So that's something that this video is about. Maybe it's like some characters thrive in water. Captain America, kind of. Ant-Man, who loves the water. He drinks the goo and stuff. But then Spider-Man, not very good in the water. I was really racking my brain if there's anything in No Way Home that's water-based. They're near water a lot, but I don't think they're in the water at all. Maybe there's some water in like a Mysterio illusion. He's fighting over the London Bridge. But yeah, so I would say based on all of this information, based on all of the data that we just collected, and obviously I left out that one Avenger on purpose, so put them in the comments too, but I think there's a strong case that Captain America not only is the first Avenger, perhaps the best Avenger, but he is also the wettest Avenger, because of the many times he has jumped into water, he's fallen into water, and obviously one of his biggest moments was him getting frozen in the middle of some water. I'd say runner-up is Ant-Man. And the thing about Ant-Man is that character's still alive. So he is in Avengers Doomsday. He's one of the people with the chair. See if maybe he has some water moments there. Maybe he fights Magneto in a big puddle or something. Or maybe he has to get into Doctor Doom through a moat, like Latveria, like a castle, and he makes another raft of ants. So that could be another instance of him. Wouldn't it be fun if that was a real thing? Like if that happens in the movie? It's like I called that in the very hastily made water video. But listen, we all had fun here and we learned a lot. But what's most important is Team Water. It is a movement, hashtag Team Water, working with a water charity to get people more water, because water, look at it, it's great. We're so lucky that water tastes good. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, obviously, you know, it doesn't really have a taste, but like it's so cool and refreshing sometimes. It's fantastic. And there's people on this earth that don't have access to clean water, and that is a shame. And we should do something about that. So go to the link that's in the description or on the screen right now and donate to Team Water, so that me and my good friends, Mr. Beast and Mark Rober and all kinds of other YouTubers that are almost as good as the three of us, the big three, as they say in the YouTube business, Nandovi Movies, Mark Rober, and Mr. Beast, so that we can do something about people not having access to clean water. Because as silly as this video may have been, it's a serious problem, and it's something that, you know, if we can do something about it, we should. But man, refreshing. Water tastes good. You know what else is good? Nebula. And obviously, yes, the character Nebula is very exciting, but I'm actually talking about the subscription streaming service that I and a bunch of my YouTube friends helped to create. And basically the pitch for my channel on Nebula, all my videos go up early and ad-free on Nebula. So like this video, you're watching it right now, it was on Nebula just maybe like a couple hours before it went live. But like my next video on my Nandovi Movies channel, which is what was Phase 5 about, that's going to be up probably like a couple weeks early. So like, you get access to the videos early, ad-free. Lots of other YouTubers you already like, some of them who talk about comics and movies and stuff like that, are already on this platform. You got Patrick Willems, Captain Midnight, Princess Weeks, just added Shea Frillis Productions, who I love, obviously, and we're always adding more. Then we also have originals that we do. These like really high quality productions. Sometimes they're like videos. We've done documentaries. We did a play once. We're doing a series soon that is a scripted drama. It's an anthology in the vein of Twilight Zone and Black Mirror, but instead of being about science fiction stuff, it's about complicated human relationships that take place in New York City. And one of the episodes, called Power Trip, was written by me, and Patrick Willems directed it. And then I've been updating you guys in these little bits at the end of the videos as like the production's gone on. So we filmed it, and it looks incredible. The actors like blew me away, but you will see it and you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't have anything I can share right now, but trust me, when that comes up, you'll see it. And I hope we make behind the scenes things so you can see how we made it, because that part is also so cool. So that'll be out sometime in the near future. Can't say exactly when. Until then, you can watch, we just put out a series called Amy's Dead End Dream House by and starring Maggie Mayfish, with a bunch of people playing the weird puppet guys, because it's kind of like a Pee-wee's Playhouse thing. One of them being Paul F. Tompkins. That's really cool. And it's very fun. And again, it has the feel of one of those children's shows, but for adults about adult problems. And that is very cool. And we're putting new episodes of that out weekly on Nebula as well. And the best part is a yearly subscription to Nebula is a steal at $60 a year, it's $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get Nebula for just $36 a year. That is $3 a month. It is an incredible deal. Go check it out. Thank you for listening. So thank you everybody for watching. Go check out Team Water. Watch the other Team Water videos. Stay hydrated. That's my thing at the end. I usually say stay safe, but stay hydrated for this one.